For today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're taking you on a trip around the world with 5 of our favorite world traveler-inspired interior design ideas. From an ultra-chic Parisian apartment to a stunning Victorian home in a seaside village in Ireland, these tastemakers are experts in spotting amazing finds from their travels and infusing them into their personal design aesthetic. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
The room where things happen, where we will entertain, where we will have exciting conversation together, and we will spend a very unique time with friends and family. So this room, as I told you before, used to be linked with the room we just saw. Because here, again, I have this big frame which were empty, and here I decided again to put some mirrors to have this lovely reflection between the different mirrors. I use the same old technique mirrors with all these little dots of mercury. But here, as you can see, instead of having the iron lines, I have just this lovely iron button, which will make the intersection of the mirror. So it's another way to cut mirrors and to interpret them. On the other side, the same chimney, because you remember on the other room here it was open, so before you had these 2 chimneys looking at each other. It's exactly the same chimney as in the other room. It's exactly the same mirror, gold and grey, than in the other room. On the chimney I have this my vase, my Athena vase in the Panache collection, with this lovely work, brush stroke work, which can remind some feathers. Here it's in these blue-gray tones, and around candle. You will see in this room that there are candles everywhere. I find when you have a dinner, it's very important to have a very gentle and soft lighting, because everyone looks so much more nice when you have the lighting of the candle. So everything I can find where I could put a candle, I will use them. I will show you after. So here I have all these glass candles, which I think are nice because in front of the mirror it plays with a reflection of light, with transparency of mirror and glass. So we have here 6 candles in different heights, making a lovely decor in front around the vase. On both sides of the mirror, this gravure en martinet, which was a very famous 18th century naturalist painter, and he was specialized in birds. So this is a collection. I find them in Alexandria, in Egypt, where I used to live with my husband when we were just young married. The walls are painted in this soft green, again a color that I have created on my own, mixing some powders, because I think that's really the way to find the subtle green I want to have. Green is also quite a traditional color for dining rooms. In the French dining rooms, when you go to visit some castles, you will often see this vert amande, we call it, almond green, in the dining rooms. Here on the wall, I put these little shelves, which are a fantastic way to change the decor, because depending on the season, because depending on the mood or what I have under my hands, I will change what I put on my shelves. It's always change, always, always, always. Sometimes you may have flower pots with flowers when it's spring. Sometimes you may have more winter decoration. Sometimes it's blue-gray like here. Sometimes it's orange, yellow. I mean, this can always change. I think in the dining room, it can be really more a theatrical atmosphere. So the decor has to move, has to change, like you will see on the table. This is really interesting. So here today, I have put some plates of my Jardin d'Udaipur collection with these cute little birds ready to fly away. And in the middle, my jars in my iconic Transat collection, stripes, in this snake green and gray shades. And what I love to do also, always, this lighting, because I avoid to light my central light, so full of little lighting spots with the little candles. Here I have silver, old Louis XVI chandelier. On this buffet, the story of the buffet is fun because I find it in the street. It was thrown by someone. I guess this must have been furniture which were used in some traditional shops. Because behind you can see some shelves, so I think the man who was selling was behind this, and it was a shop furniture. So I just painted in the same color of the wall, so that it's really like an architectural element. I keep the wood like it was, I didn't paint it. On the top you have this centre de table, we call it. Also very typical 18th century with the mirror and this work of balcony all around. Here my little teacups, I will show you, not for tea because here we have a dinner, but they can be used for other things. This is my serviteur foot stand, which is a traditional shape that you could find in all the traditional sets. I know in the countryside I have thousands of these in the cupboards because it seems that all the plates get broken, but these you still have them. So I did them now in my modern decor. It's also something that sometimes, here I use it with fruits, which is a traditional way to use them, but I use it also sometimes to put some candle on top, you know, these big round candles. It can be also a nice way to bring light in the middle of the table. So this can become a candle holder, like everything. So here, this very lovely piece of furniture that I find in auction, and I couldn't not buy it because it's Austrian, in fact. It's, you know, it's painted with this, I think it's a little bit of humoristic, and it's a good way to show my collection of carafe, crystal carafe. Like on the chimney, I love the play of transparency, of glass, of crystal, and mirror. In front, you have this lovely biscuit work of little boy putting a needle out of his feet, and on the bottom also a lovely biscuit work. So this is also very convenient when you want to put some dishes or because when we have dinner, we bring the food in the dishes, of course. We don't bring it directly in the plate. So it can be a place where to put dishes. This is a very beautiful Baroque piece, apotheker tabernacle kasten, we call it in Austria. And it comes from my grandmother. So it's something from the 17th century, so it's quite rare, with a very beautiful work of paneling, of different wood panels. Also, I want to show you my favorite little cup, completely broken, but which inspires me a lot. It's really part of my love with porcelain. This comes from my grandmother, Austrian grandmother. And in Austria, you really also have a very strong tradition of porcelain. And I love the very modern way of painting this thing with black and with this tie-dye work of hand-painted. A beautiful hand-painted work. As you can see, it has got a long story. It has been fixed up several times. So this would be maybe my little totem piece. So now we arrive in the central part of the room and of the house, let's say, because it's a table. I used to have a very traditional English mahogany table, which completely break down. One dinner, it falls down because I think the foods were a little bit damaged, and so it was a big drama. So, and in fact, it was good luck because it was a good opportunity to change and to do something that I always have wanted to do, is to be able to have two tables or one table. So I asked iron craft man to build these two tables. They are very simple, very modern, very, you shouldn't really notice them. It's because the star here is not the table, the star is what is on the table. So I wanted them to be black, so very neutral. I did some, it's a shiny black, so it's not too much sad. I mean, it has a reflection of the light also, and also of the walls. So it's not like a black hole, you see. It's also not really a color because it's a reflection of lots of different colors. So what is fantastic with these two tables is that I can have lots of different options of organizing my dinner. There are two identical tables. They are not completely square, they are a little bit rectangular. So I can choose to be either a little dinner, 8 people or 6 people, so I would be just around one table, and this will remain free. We can be 12, so I will put the two tables together. Generally, when I put the table together, I put a big tablecloth on top, so it will look like more, the traditional countryside table. Very nice when you have a big family dinner. And if we are a lot, like 16, I find it very nice to have two separate tables, like I did today. Today I did 6 and 6, so 12. Because I think it's nice sometimes to be able to have a general conversation. When it's a big table, you generally speak with your two neighbors, but you don't have a general conversation, which sometimes you would like to have. Even more if I decided that this evening I want to introduce this guy with this woman and this, so it's nice when they can speak together. So it's more intimate to have two tables. They have chat together during the aperitif in the sitting room, and now they are going, and I can choose who I want to speak with who, because I'm going to put this woman next to this man so that they have to speak. Because very often when you arrive, you are going to speak with the people you know, and the people you don't know, you don't speak with them, which is a little bit sad, because at the end of the dinner, I wanted that this guy meets this guy or this woman, and they have him speak. So during the dinner, I can decide who is going to speak with who. So on a table like this, you can really have interesting common conversation. So that is a little my strategy on the table. So generally, I decide, of course, who is sitting next to who. As you know, the French etiquette, there are two different ways of dressing a table. The hostess and her husband will be at the two extremes of the table if you have a big table. This is the English way of présider. And the French way will be, when you have the two tables together, to sit one in front of the other on this side of the table. The more important person on the right of the hostess. It may be someone who have never came to you. It can be the older one. You decide who is a more important person, and then you put, of course, woman, man, woman, one around the table. So here I decided to do 2 tables of 6. And you will see that on these 2 tables there are 2 different color stories going on. Here we are more in the purple, blue shades and red shades. And here on the other table we are more in the green, aubergine colors. So in this room you have a big family of chairs from very different countries. So this is, I had a full set of 10 chairs. These are Austrian chairs that I found in auction. I bought them to put them in the mountains, in my chalet in the mountains. But I find that they were really fun in Paris. A little bit unexpected to have these very rustical Austrian chairs, more paysan, farmer chairs. And I find they were fun in this room. And here, more English, traditional English chairs. And on the side, Austrian Biedermeier chairs. So you really have the whole world here. It's very international here, and very different styles, from the most sophisticated to the more rustical. And it works. This was a gift of my mother when we were young married, because for my mother, as I told you, everything which is around the table is very important. So she gave us this traditional English table that we break, but the chairs are still there. And these chairs, the Austrian one, come from my grandmother in Austria. And this, I bought them in auction, in a very little auction house. We were having a weekend by some friends in north of Paris. And we went to this auction just for fun. And suddenly I saw these chairs, and you can't believe them. I bought them €7 the chair. Shh, don't tell it. It was really amazing.
I've lived here for 15 years. It's an old Victorian row home built around 1885. There are a lot of challenges living in a almost 150-year-old home, but the challenges and the quirks are so much part of the charm. I love thinking about, what was the person who lived here doing in 1885? What were they wearing when they walked down the steps? So I think it's really fun to have that kind of energy and that kind of history in a space. This space is a real mix of the upholstered pieces come from Cisco Brothers, which is a great LA-based furniture company that we stock at Salt and Sundry. It's all really well-crafted, sustainable materials. They're super, super awesome. I've decorated my home slowly over the 15 years I've been here. I am really, really indecisive, despite the fact that I own shops and basically buy things for a living. I am very careful and deliberate about what I bring in the house. There's also a bit of a, the cobbler's children has no shoes phenomenon, where half the things I do bring home from the shops are the broken, the chipped, the thing that we couldn't sell. But I really have to love it for it to come in. I try to do a little bit of one in, one out, but that doesn't always work if you look in some of the closets. I love rattan. I am 60s, 70s are definitely an era that I'm very drawn to, so I'm on board forever. I don't know if I'll ever really get sick of it, but I have it sort of mixed in with pieces of different periods throughout the house, so it's not like full on rattan world. One of the biggest pieces that I'm grateful that when my fiance moved in at the beginning of the pandemic, we had to do a lot of blending of our styles, which are actually pretty compatible. But he has these really stunning pieces from his time overseas as a foreign correspondent. He lived in Beirut for 3 or so years and was really fell in love with a lot of the artwork there. This piece is a Syrian artist who I think he spotted when he was on assignment in Syria, but then ended up finding the piece, I think in Beirut. But I think a lot of his friends and family were worried about whether or not this piece was going to be welcomed by me, and I love it. I think it's such a statement piece. So the other largest piece that he brought back with him was this gold sculpture. It has lyrics from an Egyptian singer written in Arabic behind the gold leaf. So it kind of has literally an interesting backstory. We were able to meld our styles because my styles were already sort of conflicting. I'm constantly drawn to, I love the 60s and 70s, but this is a Victorian home. So I really love, turn of the century pieces. So I felt like there was some natural chaos that was already happening, and his stuff really just beautifully contributed to that. So like I always tell people, there shouldn't be any rules. You don't have to like adopt like a single look or feel or era of time or furniture that you like. As long as you love it and it resonates with you or has a story from your past, it's gonna look like you, and that's what your home should ultimately look like. So this beautiful black walnut table was hand built by my father, Walter, down in North Carolina. I grew up in the Durham, Chapel Hill area. He was a carpenter, still is, really makes beautiful pieces. Bringing people around a table that your family member actually created always just has a really nice like depth of feeling to me, because it's so special and so meaningful. We love Franca, the pieces that are all handmade in Brooklyn. They are like a super cool ceramic artist design duo. But I felt like, the black and white contrast sort of breaks up a lot of the textiles and textures and fabrics. And so it's a lot of eclectic things going on, but I feel like it works. So this is our little bar. This is an old chest, a vintage chest that he found in the Middle East with the beautiful mother of pearl. And then sort of just layered it with, some beautiful books from Salt and Sundry, vintage glassware that I can't stop buying. This is another one of my favorite ceramic artists, Demetria Chapu. And I'm like so crazy about her eye collection. We sell her vases, we sell tumblers. So this is another maker. These are beeswax ladies. I love that they're standing guard over my bar. It's sort of a celebration of the female form. It's obviously challenging to fit a powder room into a lot of old Victorian homes, and luckily there was one tucked here under the stairwell. I was wanting to wallpaper this for years, and there's so many small angles and so many small corners that I thought, well, what if I just mimicked the look of wallpaper by painting a pattern on? So this was a pandemic project. I spent a lot of time in this bathroom. I was listening to Dolly Parton's America, which is an amazing, amazing podcast, and I feel like it has like Dolly energy in the bathroom because I was listening to the entire podcast while I was painting. But I knew I wanted it to be sort of bright and inviting. I had it a really dark color for years, and I just sort of free-handed this pattern. I felt like it was a bit inspired by Colombian mola embroidery, which I actually found this at Miss Pixie's as well, but I have a couple pieces from Colombia. But I've always loved just these, the lines, the different designs. So I was like, don't be precious about it, just freehand. And if it looks terrible, the worst thing that you do is paint over it. It's just paint. So it was inexpensive, it was cheap, it was an easy project. Welcome to the main bedroom. This is my little sanctuary that I've created. I was really craving color, which is something I didn't have a lot of in the house, at least on the walls. So I painted this sort of terracotta color. I have to be honest, I don't think I nailed the color, but it's really beautiful. It makes me feel like I'm on vacation when I come into the bedroom. Again, layering textiles, incorporating some pieces from my fiance's cool collection from the Middle East. The rug is from Beirut, which is really beautiful. One of the design things that my fiance and I shared a love for were Suzanne's, and actually a lot of his friends who were foreign correspondents, all brought back some of these really beautiful Suzanne's. So this one again came from Beirut, and I thought it looked really nice as kind of an extension of the headboard. So this is a tapestry. We can just roll it up when we want to watch a show, which is great. You just tuck it over the back. During the pandemic, he was actually broadcasting from our bedroom often until I think there was one morning where he had to be on at 6 a.m. and I had to get out of bed and I said, this isn't working anymore. But obviously, people during the pandemic who were, on the news were having to create these backdrops that were appropriate for TV. So you obviously couldn't have a TV behind your head. So we covered the TV, which served multiple purposes because you don't really want to look at a TV. I've got a couple of fun vintage DC pieces. This is actually some woman's high school diploma that was actually salvaged from a building that was about to be torn down. Down the street, it was like an old Popeyes, and there was all these cool vintage finds, and a friend of ours took a bunch of the things out. Anyway, a random vintage piece. If anybody knows Mary Edwina Hope, I think it's Hope.
It's definitely not you.
It's not me, nor is it a relative of mine. So if you know her relatives, I have her high school diploma, and you're welcome to have it back. This is a little hat box from Woodward and Lothrop, which was an old department store in DC, which is fun. My aunt actually found it picking flea markets down in North Carolina, and she's like, I feel like it needs to make its way back up to DC. So it's got the cherry blossom motif on it in the Capitol. So we're in the main bathroom, which I just painted, but I love the color. It's called Soft Marigold. I was really trying to create warmth in a place where there is no natural light, which is really difficult. These tiles are Moroccan cement tiles that I found in New York. That trend has since exploded, which I love because I think it's such a cool, classic, timeless look. And this piece, which I still can't decide where to incorporate it, but it clearly belongs in a bathroom, is a tribute to my grandparents. It was hanging in their powder room in their house in Delaware for 40, 50 years. And I used to stare at it. It was over the toilet and just giggle at the two nudes. So I ended up the one who inherited the two nudes. I don't think anybody was fighting me for it. But it's like quintessentially 70s. I have looked up the artist. It's William Egan. He was like very much this cartoony 70s style. But they live in the bathroom for now.
The centerpiece of this room is the fireplace. It was here. This used to be the front door here. So you walked in, I turned it right away into a window and made the front door where we came in. But the fireplace is really special. And when I bought it, there was not when I bought it, it's still here, but I never used it. And you can see that this is where they cooked forever. These walls once had nothing on them, and I love gallery hangs, and I'm really afraid to put art on the wall. And I was like looking at this wall forever, and I said to Heidi, just go for it. Just like put shit up there. And I didn't measure anything. And I had a friend of mine come and hang with me, and we just piecemealed it together, and I like it. I brought over a container. So I have my residency, and when you get your residency, you get to bring a container over tax-free. And so I filled it with like a lot of the stuff you're looking at, a lot of the books, all the books, all my artwork. And then that was it. So I have to like bring back duffel bags of stuff when I want things from the States. And one time I brought back like 2 of these rugs. One's in my bedroom, these sheepskin rugs that I bought for $400, I think, at Costco, and another little rug in my bedroom from ABC Carpet, and that was amazing. I obviously love sheepskin and textiles. This piece I bought in San Francisco at a great shop in Hayes Valley a long time ago when I was living in Hayes Valley. These are great pieces from another friend, Aline Smithson, who is a great photographer, and this is her mom, that she took these pictures with her mom. And this is my yoga teacher, Patavi Joyce. I used to have a yoga studio in San Francisco, and we had about 8 portraits of him and his kids that I have here now. You'll see them in a minute. Another from, I used to never hang my own pictures in my house until like the last year. I think COVID had me sitting in my house a lot, and I was like, how come I don't hang my own art? So I just hung these up recently. They're from a series that I did called A Green Dress, which I did in while I was living in Humboldt County. I love these, again, from India. They're like mirrored vintage. The frames are vintage. Deities. These are Bubba's, my dog's toys from IKEA. He's 15. This dog is 15 years old, just in case you wanted to know what those were. This is like a little special space of mine. All these pillowcases are from Rajasthan. I did a little tour of Rajasthan while I was living in India with my mom, and we had a great time buying fabric. I just came back from Marfa, Texas, where I'm bringing some people to do an event, and I bought a whole bunch of these. As again, I love textiles, and I bought a bunch of these pillowcases that I have to get. I have to get stuffing for them. These are from Garza Marfa, an amazing store. I used to work in the fashion industry, and I love accessories. So I like to wear something basic, and then I like to wear, have a great handbag or great shoes or something like that. And I think now that I'm talking about this, that I also love that for the house. So things I love as accessories are books, like art books, and definitely textiles. And so I think on all of the wild places I've been, I always bring back some kind of textile, whether it's a rug or just a piece of fabric. I actually bought this, I think in the Hamptons, for example. I just discovered this great designer named Gregory Parkinson. I actually didn't discover him. I remembered him from a designer from when I used to work in fashion, and he's doing textiles now, and I just picked this up in Texas. My grandmother made this a long time ago for me, which I love. And so I don't really know what to do with my textiles, so I just kind of throw them around. I like to look at them. Again, they just make me happy. And that's what I think, that's the best style tip that I could say is surround yourself with things that make you happy. Let's go into my bedroom. Oh, this is Bubba. This is my dog, Bubba, the old guy who's 15, who has also traveled all over the place with me. So this room has a great story. It was the old garage, so it was cut off from the house. And when I first moved in, it was just a very long, narrow, very dark, dank room that I lived in for 2 years. So the wall was here and there was no windows at all. And one year I couldn't take it anymore, and I said, okay, I have to make some light in here. And in the meantime, we just made windows and blew the whole thing out. And it's one of my favorite rooms for sure. This is another rug that I bought in my suitcase from Costco, and another little sheepskin with Bubba on it. Hi, Bub. That I bought here. It's easy to find in Uruguay. This furniture, so I wanted to have a living room and bedroom situation at the same time. So I bought these pieces here, actually, the 2 chairs and this really messed up couch, which is not the most comfortable, but I'd sit here actually, but it's a great place for the textiles. And again, this table I actually bought here too. And this is the carpet from ABC that I also brought in my suitcase. This is an old piece that I bought here that happened to fit exactly where it should. And I'll show you how we kitted out. What a mess, but works, and this is all for hanging. And I used to have my desk here in this space, but I moved that to my new studio and had a carpenter copy the same piece over here, and I like the way it turned out. So this is my studio. This is a mosquito door system that I invented with the metal guy I work with, who's made all my doors and windows. He's super creative, and this is not the first time that we've come up with some kind of cockamamie idea that actually works really well. So I really like rusty old things. It is above the garage. It's the last thing I think I built. It's kind of a dream space for me. I don't get up here enough. This is a desk from the 50s that I bought in Uruguay. That used to be in my bedroom. These are designed within reach shelves that I've had since I lived in San Francisco since 2005, I think. That was the first time I put them long, and they used to be up high, and they're, you can make them in any shape you want, and I love this iteration of them the best. Let's just look at these because I love them. These are old, like Kama Sutra perfume bottles. I'm sorry I haven't got my nails done. I live in the middle of nowhere, so that's what happens with manicures. These chairs that need to be recovered, I bought in a San Francisco junk shop on Divisadero and had them recovered. They're old Eames chairs. They're actually I bought them before Mad Men, but they're actually on Mad Men. I was happy to see them there. This is a very famous chair that is from my great aunt Sally, who lived, my brother and sister and I all lived in her apartment in New York, and I'm the oldest, so I was the first one that lived there, and she had this in an ottoman, and I recovered it when I was like 22 in this fabric. So it's super worn, and I don't know why I got rid of the ottoman, but I did, and that's a bummer, and nobody likes this chair, but I love it the most. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks for coming and joining me in my place in Pueblo Garzon, Uruguay.
And now I'm going to take you through to the kitchen. This is originally our bedroom in the house, but we removed the ceiling, added these two huge roof lights, and it allowed this southern light to come through. So even on a day like today, which is very stormy and very grey, you can see there's a huge amount of natural light. I chose this totally oversized island, but we prep food here, we have parties here, and it works as like a social space, but also a prep space. I've always wanted a La Cornue range, and it was probably one of the first things I bought actually before we even started the renovation. And I chose this Provence blue, which is a colour that I've used in other details in the house, such as the spindles and the staircase and the floor tiles. So it's a little trick I like to use to bring in a colour and different references throughout a home. I created this curved shelf in the marble, and it works really well because it gives you an opportunity then to place some of your favourite objects, artwork, flowers, and to bring a softness for a kitchen, which can often be kind of filled with cabinetry and hard surfaces. And one of my favorite pieces is this unicorn that I bought at the Click Encore, this vintage market in Paris. And I saw also in Paris these wall sconces, which are by a company called Magic Circus. And they're inspired by the metro stations you see in Paris and those Art Nouveau designs and metalwork. But I love to use individual hardware, particularly in a kitchen. I think it's an opportunity to have a little bit of fun. So I've gone for these Jaguars and then these Art Deco details on the pull drawers. This project was a real labor of love. It gave me a new opportunity and I think an understanding of how intense the kind of renovation and design project can be on you personally, because even though I do it for a living, it's very different when it's your own money and your own time that you're investing. So I think it's given me a really good understanding of the pressure that clients are under, and also the detail, because it's a nearly 200-year-old property. I really understand how to treat it carefully, areas to restore and to protect. So I think it's really given me a knowledge in that side of design as well. And a not super glam but necessary addition is the stairgates, because I have two very young kids running around and we're on the first floor level. This is probably one of my favorite pieces. It's a Burl 1960s cabinet, and I got WhatsApped a photo of it when I was on holidays, and I was so committed I had to try and find Wi-Fi and send the dealer some funds. But that's my commitment when I see a piece that I really love. And on a normal day, there's really spectacular views of Dublin Bay, but today, unfortunately, it's very stormy. But even, you know, I suppose for me, I even like seeing the waves, the crashing against the pier, and there's something kind of magical about that as well. And what works really well is that we've created this kind of hidden storage and window seat. It's great because all of our kids' toys are hidden away, and you know, in the evening time when myself and my husband sit here, it's all concealed. But during the day, you know, they're playing beside us. We like to kind of cook dinner and be watching them. So it's a very practical space in that it's concealed, but it's very dynamic as well, that everything is accessible. I love this idea of having the kind of arts and crafts table up here as well versus separated from us. And even the idea of like a small dining table. This is, you know, our family space. I wanted it to feel cozy and inviting, and you know, it's just for the four of us. So it feels to me appropriate to have a small dining table for us. I set up my design practice about 10 years ago. I'd worked in the US for a little bit, and I came home and I just felt I really wanted to creatively have an opportunity to put my own stamp on different projects. And I felt very lucky. I landed some clients quite early on and was able to, again, I think because throughout my life I've always been drawn to antiques and antique hunting and art, that it was maybe an angle that a lot of interior designers in Ireland at the time weren't focusing on. I think stylistically, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was all about modernity and very sleek contemporary spaces, which I still love and am drawn to because of my history as studying architecture as well. But I think there was a kind of eclecticism and a more curated feel that I brought to projects that I suppose allowed me to take on more work and more design projects through my career. And this is the primary bedroom. And the aim here was to create something, you can see it's a really stormy, cold day out there. So I wanted to have something very cozy. The idea of the canopy is that it gives almost like a cocoon feeling. And I absolutely adored this fabric. It was something I wanted to use for a really long time. It's by Dadar and it's called Electric Dreams. So it's kind of a take on a schnozery, which is a detail that I always love. But in my design projects, and something I wanted to do here is this idea of mixing, you know, something more delicate, which is the schnozery print, with then a kind of a more chunky geometric fabric. And I lined the Dadar then with a silk stripe by Pierre Frey, and we did this kind of Dutch style velvet headboard and the little Samuel & Son trim, and I just love that palette. I was kind of inspired by Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette film, so this kind of soft palette was something I wanted to bring right through in the main bedroom. And we brought that detail through then of the box pleat in the curtains as well. And over here, this is one of my favorite pieces. Again, I do a lot of sourcing in Paris, and I came across this company called Maison Dada, and I just loved, it was kind of a take on an Art Deco dressing table, and it's a great, I suppose, place where, you know, I can get away from being busy mom and working and everything, and maybe take a few minutes to get ready before work, or if I have an evening out. And there's a few really personal pieces. I like to keep my more personal items maybe in the bedroom. This is a painting of my first dog that I absolutely loved called Solo, and a family friend of ours painted that. But it was really interesting, even though I've had this for maybe 20 years, the palette I thought was just almost uncanny how it's like taking in all the coloration from the fabrics that I chose here. The lighting, again, I sourced these in Milan in a vintage dealer, and they had been in storage for a really long time. So I was a little bit worried when I took them out of storage that one of them could have cracked, because I absolutely loved the kind of soft pink of the glass. And I used the same dealer then for this vintage pink. I think this is 1960s pendant. But my love of kind of antiques and collecting started actually with my great-great-grandmother. And she had a kind of country house that I used to visit a lot as a child. And she was really sweet and kind, and she would give me pieces. This is hers. This was like an old antique Irish silver mirror and a jewellery box. So I think from an early age, I've always loved finding these little gems. And the Japanese dolls are actually a gift from my dad. And it's something that I've always been inspired by Asian design, and you can see that in some of the Chinoiserie prints and some of the screen prints as well that I have in the drawing room. So I like to keep a lot of my very personal items in the bedroom, and one piece I adore is this artwork by Aaron Slim. So it's a photograph from the 1960s, and I don't get breakfast in bed often, but I like to place as many hints as possible throughout the house. And I love that she's reading the newspaper with her monocle. I just think it's kind of fun, and it's a moment I would like to maybe create at some point in my life. I think what I love about this home is it had the opportunity to have these more formal, dramatic rooms, as well as the more casual living. And my lifestyle has changed. So when we moved into the house in 2019, it was myself and my husband. And since that, we've had 2 babies. So the home has kind of had to evolve with our growing family. But I think it's really given shape and depth to the home. So we've lived here for over 7 years now, and we've actually just sold our home. So I think we designed it thinking it would be our forever home, but I suppose as things happen, we had children and we decided maybe to have somewhere with a slightly bigger garden. We adore the area. As I said, the people are so kind here. We're right beside the sea, and we have a lovely little village that's full of, amazing fish shops and organic vegetables. And so we have that village lifestyle that we didn't want to leave. So we're only moving about 500 meters away. And that leads us to the primary bathroom, which I think is the room people love about this house. This actually used to be originally the kitchen. When we were doing the reconfiguration, it felt really natural to kind of create this double doors and this huge main suite in the house. I fell in love, I suppose the starting point was this Philip Jeffries wallpaper. I like that it almost felt woven or embroidered, and the palette of the background, which is the soft kind of peachy tones. And I work a lot with a marble and stone dealer in Wicklow, not too far away from here. And they had this incredible peach onyx. So I had this light bulb moment of, okay, this is going to be, perfect together. So I had to have it, basically. And we use that in the double vanity, either side of the fireplace, and then the shower, which I feel is probably one of the most special showers in Ireland, because we have this really dramatic custom brass fittings that I had made in Italy, and the same as the bath. And this bath actually weighs 1 ton. And it was, let's say, quite an ordeal to get it in. But I just thought there was something really special about the weightiness of it. And because we're close to the sea, I quite like to go swimming, and we do it right up until winter. So there's nothing quite like being for a swim in the depths of winter in the Irish Sea, and then having a bath with the marble getting really warm, and then we put in the fireplace as well. So we're able to kind of, you transform. It's very like a ritual after you go swimming in the sea. So this is the perfect place to escape all the mayhem from upstairs and to unwind after a busy day in the studio. I can have my Cleopatra moment in the marble bath and sit by the fire and unwind. And that's the master bathroom.
So we're in the foyer, which of course was my first glimpse of this house, and I had an immediate great impression because of the height of the ceilings and the handsome millwork on the walls. I knew exactly where a very major piece of furniture of mine here would go, that it would be right here in the entryway. This is French, early to mid 19th century. In various incarnations in other homes, it's been a bar, it's hidden a television, it could be a coat closet. This piece is really interesting to me because you can tell, you know that it belonged to a military family because this is the patriarch, his military medal. And so I'm very, very fond of this piece. It has all of its original hardware. And when I walked into the house, I knew this is going to go right there. Over here, we have one of a pair of Italian chairs, antiques, probably 150 to 200 years old. And This painting is something that's very special to me. It's by an artist whose name is Josefina Ostlander, and she was born and raised in Argentina and lived there during the military dictatorship, the so-called Dirty War in 1973 through, I believe, 1986, when anyone who was considered quote-unquote subversive or having leftist ideas was sometimes disappeared, banished, imprisoned, whatever. She received a phone call in the middle of the night which said the following: "There is no place for a Jew in Argentina." She and her husband fled very shortly thereafter. Now, she traveled the world for 3 years until she got a green card for the United States and ended up settling in Maine, where she lives today in her mid-80s, still making beautiful art. This piece is fascinating because it is done 100% in pencil, graphite, and yet the level of detail is just extraordinary. The draftsmanship is amazing, and she is still making art and represented in a wonderful new gallery in Woolwich, Maine. And I was just looking at the dates closely on this painting, and it appears to say 1982 to 1985, which means that this is a piece that she took out of Argentina and eventually finished either in Europe or in the United States. And so again, this piece, this is a survivor who has made this beautiful piece. I particularly like this with this modern light fixture in the ceiling in the entryway, but in addition, I tend to like otherworldly or cosmological art about portals, and of course you can see that this is looks like a moon and maybe a sun and so forth. So I wanted this to have a pride of place. This is a special woman who has made this piece of art. Over here we have embroideries from China. These would have been on the front of a robe of a nobleman working for the emperor, and the beautiful detail just kind of knocks me out. You've got your lion that looks a little bit like a dragon too. You've got your storks and bats and so forth, and you're going to be seeing a lot of antique Chinese textiles, Middle Eastern textiles, etc. as we go through the house. And the symbolism in all of these pieces is something I'd like to talk with you about as well. So I would just conclude with a foyer here by saying you have this great looking herringbone floor, you have these high ceilings, this big black window door, and so when we walked into the house I had a very favorable first impression with this foyer. But let's go into the living room. This is a room that I'd like to linger in a bit because it contains some of my favorite things. People always ask me, do you have a favorite room in the house? And it's kind of like picking your favorite child. But if I had to pick, I would say probably this room. Please come in. Okay, let's start over here with this painting, Artist Unknown. I do my best to really research all the art we buy, but this artist remains unknown to me. However, its appeal to me is that this, to me, looks like a window. And as I've kind of said, portals interest me, windows, doors, black holes, keyholes, etc. So a fair amount of the art in the house has that kind of symbolism, including another piece in this room. I like how heavily the paint was put on this painting, and it looks as if it might have been done in a frenzy, complete opposite from Josefina Ostlander's work, which is so meticulous. These are fun. These I bought in Cambodia. Antique bells with this lovely little creature on the top. These pieces, if anyone out there knows what they are, I would love to hear. I think they may be Inuit, carved bone, little faces, and it opens. I thought originally it might have had tobacco stuffed in it, but there's no residual smell. So I have no idea what these are, but I love them. I bought these in an antique shop in Maine, where many of my things come from, because for years and years and years we had a summer home in Kennebunkport, and so I was very much an aficionado of the gallery and antique scene in Maine. So a lot of my things were purchased in Maine, but of course come from all over the world. This piece is English, early 19th century. I've had it for a million years. A million years. Well, actually, I've had a lot of things for a million years here. Moving over to one of my very favorite paintings. And again, you can see sort of, I think you can see my interest in things that look like they are otherworldly. This to me looks cosmological. Although when I talked with the artist, her name is Heather Chanto, she's a young American woman who's getting huge critical acclaim these days. I said, Heather, I don't see a title on this painting. And she goes, oh, I called it Underwater. And I laughed. I said, to me, it looks like outer space. And she laughed too. She said, that's fine, that's great. I can see that as well. She tells a funny story about having painted this really large painting and gotten so into it and then realized she couldn't get it out the studio door and had to take it off the frame and roll it, get it out and re-stretch it. So it's kind of, so Heather now, she was living in Maine. She was living in Maine, but now she lives in France. And she's restoring a wonderful old barn and studio and doing her painting there. The furniture is fairly low lying, and that's from Restoration Hardware, so you too can have that and the matching chairs. Purposefully low so as to keep as much of the light as possible in this room. One of the tips for young people who are just designing their first home is that in a room you want to go from low to high so that your eye moves up. So it moves up for these paintings, for example, for this mirror that I want to talk about, and then it comes down low for the furniture. You want the eye to travel around the room, and you want the eye to find an empty space to rest as well. So let's look at this mirror. This mirror was bought in Chiang Mai, Thailand, but comes from Cambodia, probably from an old temple. Legally exported, I'm always quick to say, but I love it here, all alone on the mantelpiece, reflecting the Buddha in front of the painting on the other side, which is my single most favorite Buddha of all that I own.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.